Welcome to Practical Access. I'm Lisa Dieker.
And I'm Rebecca Hines. And Lisa, this episode, I was thinking, because again, I have school-age kids here at my house, what's happening with rigor? What do we do to promote rigor in these online environments? And what is the role and responsibility of the parent to ensure that kids are actually participating rigorously? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to go back to my roots of special ed and say, this might be an opportunity to actually ensure equality and rigor. And yet what I worry about is that group A is getting this and group B is getting that and group C is getting nothing or less of that. Or I also worry that kids with disabilities might be getting a lot of their services like speech, PT, OT, and missing that academic, no different than we see in brick and mortar. And so I think that it's got to be a time where we keep asking ourselves, not only are we meeting the IEP goals, but are we really assessing the standards? And if kids are in access points, that's still okay, but they still should be accessing the content of the standard. And I think the only way to do that goes back to one of my root values, which is including them in the same activities you're doing with everybody else. And I'm not sure that's happening everywhere. I see highlights of amazing work, as I know you do, and then other places that talk a lot about meeting goals, but I don't know about the rigor of content. So what are you seeing, or what are you thinking?
Well, I agree that there's definitely a lot of disparity among access, and I think it as expected, it's really district to district and school to school across
State to
state.
state, yeah.
What I can see. So part of it kind of starts with what a district, how a district has helped roll out all of this. So no doubt about that. And as you know, Lisa, when it comes to achievement, there are a lot of factors that are correlated with achievement in school, but the number one correlate that can be controlled by teachers and now unfortunately by parents is instructional time and opportunity to learn. I mean, that historically that's been the thing. So opportunity to learn is what districts should now be offering. They should be sending out the curriculum and making it accessible so kids do have an opportunity to learn. But that amount of time that a student's really actually engaged in instruction, if schools are doing things asynchronously, which means, not real time, but they're just pushing out the information, unfortunately now, again, it's back on parents to ensure that instructional time is happening. And I think that's a real challenge. I keep reading, different posts from parents saying, you know what, not doing it. I'm going to enjoy my kid. Yeah, I can't be the teacher and the parent and the worker right now. So, and I can really feel for them. But I think we have to think about the opportunity to learn and the actual instructional time, the amount of time that kids engage in instruction. And I think that the districts that are able right now to engage their kids synchronously, in other words, through different kind of online meetings, those districts, I would imagine, are going to have probably a little bit better learning gains, because at least if they have a good percentage of kids logging in, they're at least delivering the instruction.
Yeah, and I think, instructional time is important, and yet I respect as parents, not only can you not be your kid's teacher, I was given some great advice by a fabulous colleague in Michigan who said, don't be your son's tutor because you want to be their parent. And yet right now, everybody's a tutor, whether you want to be or not. And I think whether the tutorial is coming from a packet that the parent has to interpret what the teacher wants and the teacher gets back a week later, versus the packet is the teacher delivering, the parent listening, learning with, and supporting, I think are going to have different outcomes. And unfortunately, our kids of poverty are going to sometimes be the kids who don't have access. I really do respect that we have internet providers providing free access, but again, free access in a home with one device means limitations. Yet I do have to celebrate, we got some great, amazing parents who are really making some tough choices with their budgets. I know a lot of the teachers I work with in Title I schools, parents are going out buying computers. They're going out of their way to ask for devices. I had a teacher last night said, I called another district that's rich, and they said, yeah, we got extra computers, come and get them. So, I think it's a time for people to step up and say, look, I got an old computer at my house. If the neighbor next door doesn't have one, they can have it. But I do think kids who don't have that ability to be online, see their teachers, and the teachers get immediate results from kids learning, I think that's the other thing we're missing, is that immediate feedback. When kids can immediately know they're right versus when they're wrong. Most of our kids with LD, when they're wrong and they learn it wrong, good luck when they go back to school next year, because that's ingrained as the way that they learned it at that moment. And I think that's what keeps me up at night related to rigor.
Well, I think as a parent too, if you're worried about your student and your student, I'm so teachery. If you're worried about your child,
darn teacher.
I know.
And you have twins, so you've got double parenting.
I've got twins of kids who are very different academically, and yet, not surprisingly, at this moment, are so similar in their complete lack of interest in getting out of the pool and doing something online. So it is interesting, though, because what I've found in terms of rigor across the board is, I sometimes have to seek out what I think are the best learning materials for my kids anyway. If I have, my kids are in high school, and I will look at Khan Academy. I will look, you can download, I really hate to say this again, I don't want to make people's brains explode, but you can download the state standards. And if you're worried about on an app, there's an app, you can download, state standards. So there's even using just keywords that are at the grade level of your child, even weaving it in when I say things like opportunity to learn. If you don't feel like your kids are getting the opportunity they need, don't make it harder on yourself. Don't think that it's about sitting down and doing things the old way. It is about taking a nature walk. But if you know some key words or some key things that kids are supposed to be learning at their grade level, I would try to weave some of that into my natural language in my discussion. Things like social skills, Lisa, this is a good chance for a lot of those soft skills that we don't get a chance to teach.
Absolutely.
So I would make it easier on myself as a parent, because honestly, I would not want to, I don't want to sit with my kids all day and try to, fight them to do their work. I do want to make sure that they're learning something, even if it's those soft skills right now, those communication skills. Maybe if we just try to at least talk to our kids more. Mm-hmm. And maybe teachers could send out, maybe we're thinking, one thing I really took from a recent graduate course I was teaching online, one of the students in my class said, I wish I had not sent out so much information and overwhelmed the parents so fast. And that really resonated with me. What if teachers just sent a quick text in the morning and said, here's 4 key words to try to use all day?
Yeah.
I think we might see more learning gains if we thought a little differently as teachers about what we're actually sending out in the first place.
It's funny because you hit on my absolute favorite thing, and it's probably one of my personal pet peeves when I walk into a special education class focused on math or science. And it seems to be that when we teach kids with disabilities math or science, we tend to want to tell them. And we tend to let them use one-word statements like, what's that number at the bottom? A 4. Well, it's not a 4. No. It's 1/4, and using a complete sentence, 1/4 of a whole is, 25%. Can you say that in a complete sentence? So I think at home, I would also be working, especially in the math and science, we do this great in reading. Retell me the story. The kid didn't say, guy ran hill, you just wouldn't do that. But in mathematics and science, it tends to be how we approach it. It got hotter. Well, what does that mean? Well, when the water was on the stove, it began to boil, which means the temperature rise and it was hotter. That's the kind of conversation I would be having in my house, especially in math and science with kids, so that we're not just having social, but we're having really complete sentence discussion. And I know your kids are older, but honestly, I don't think you can ever be too old, because that's what happens in math and science. We assume if you spit out the answer, and really that's not math and science today. It's conceptual understanding. The only way to know what you're thinking is to ask a kid. And ask a kid with a disability what they're thinking. Sometimes you get things you weren't planning to hear.
Kind of to flash back to one of our earlier episodes, I will tell you the one thing that I have had success with here. And again, thinking outside, you mentioned the idea of immediate feedback. We have taken Khan Academy quizzes and even some of the, I mean, to be honest, some of the virtual quizzes that my kids are asked to do. And we project them on the TV and we play it like a quiz game. And we all guess our answer. And then we look at the real answer. And, you know, we're trying to make it as game-like as possible.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've had my kids do more history over the last few days, just putting it up on the TV and doing it. You know, I'm just like the show host, and we just keep guessing our answers and seeing if we're right.
I just want to know who gets the most right. I bet it's not you.
No, it's you know who it is in my house.
I do.
No, it's not me.
It's a girl gene. So
It's not me. But, you know, circling back, I think we kind of, as we sometimes do, we were a little a field of rigor per se right now, but kids do need feedback. I do recommend Khan Academy. I do recommend finding something that includes self-grading quizzes, but not punitively. That's the great thing about something like Khan Academy. It's not punitive. You go in and you see if you know it, yes or no. So if you can align some of the topics your kids are supposed to be learning about, and if you feel like your child is not getting the content he or she needs right now, I would turn to a really well-vetted resource like Khan Academy, and I would try to make it feel as non-threatening as possible and use it as an opportunity just to let the child keep working, keep practicing in a really low stakes environment.
Okay, but I'm gonna have to push back a little bit. My friends in math and science will be like, what? Because I do believe Khan Academy is fabulous, but it doesn't have dialogue. So I think it's a great place for parents to go and learn the math, but really to have dialogue with their kids. Because I do believe that what it's missing is the conceptual piece of. So, you know, we disagree quite often in things in life.
That's really stated as somebody who could apparently watch a Khan Academy and then discuss it with their child. My kids have known more about math than me for the last.
Well, I'm talking first grade. I'm not talking college and high school. Yeah.
So if I'm teaching, if my kids are smaller, maybe, Lisa, maybe.
Yes. But I do think that it's important when kids are really young, they learn to have discussions about math. And I do think that's often missing. And again, I love the writing on the board and the procedural knowledge, but we know conceptual knowledge is what we need. So just keep that in mind as part of your rigor. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we are rigored out, I think. So that was rigorous enough for one night. What do you think? Any last thoughts?
No, other than just if you can hear the loud children in the background, my apologies.
Oh, no, it sounded nice and quiet on my end. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us, and join us on Twitter @AccessPractical and post your questions.